Hey Luke,
Hello.
what time is it?
Might as well be clobbering time.
It is clobbering
Yeah.
time. Today we're talking about Fantastic Four First Steps. Welcome back to the Movie Cart channel. This movie is directed by Matt Shackman. He recently did WandaVision. He's directed Always Sunny episodes and Succession episodes, Game of Thrones, so he's done a lot of TV. It stars Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby, Ebon Moss-Backrack, and Joseph Quinn as the Fantastic Four. And the basic synopsis is the Fantastic Four, renowned heroes in the world, are faced with their greatest challenge yet when the planet eating Galactus threatens to consume the Earth for dinner. All right, Luke, non spoilers first. What'd you think?
That was awesome. I'm definitely biased towards the Fantastic Four, but this was a very comic accurate telling of early Fantastic Four, and that's really all I wanted. I was going to say low stakes. Obviously, that's ridiculous because the stakes were that the planet was going to be eaten, but it was very Fantastic Four central. That's low stakes in that sense, where there weren't cameos and cameos and cameos. We weren't jumping into alternate timelines. It was a very singular story all about this one issue. And that issue was universe ending, but you know what I mean, right? Like it's just about this singular group of heroes in this story. And really just New York.
Yeah, no, it definitely felt like a one issue sort of like comic or like just a one kind of four issue arc. Like I think it really harkened back to the original 60s comics. And I know we talked about during the 2005 Fantastic Four video what we hope to get out of this movie. And I said, like, more the zany, wacky elements and sci fi craziness of the old series. And we definitely got that, which I really liked. What'd you think about just the choice to make it kind of that 60s aesthetic and like alternate world and technology?
I thought that was really cool because that's the world that the Fantastic Four exists in. And it's a lot easier, speaking specifically of Reed Richards and his scientific capabilities, it's a lot easier to make someone smart and scientifically advanced 60 years in the past. If they're in the present and you have to invent new things that have never even been conceived of, then you're relying on Matt Shackman and the writers to come up with things. They're not the smartest people in the world. But if you're with new things from the 60s, then you're like, oh, this guy has, 2025 technology in the 60s. And obviously he can travel at light speed and all that jazz. But I think it was very smart just to represent them in that way. It's easier to tell a wholesome family story 60 years ago.
Definitely, it definitely kind of plays into the nuclear family aspect, and you're totally right about, it has to be a smart writer to write smart characters. I know this is totally off topic, but Game of Thrones later seasons kind of fell off because the writers just ran out of smart material already written for them, so the smart characters became really stupid. So it's a hard thing to pull off all the time, but I feel like Reed, especially compared to the 2005 movie, his characterization was much more on point to what he's supposed to be. And I think all of the Fantastic Four were definitely like that. Did you agree?
Yeah, I thought everyone was a better characterization. I would totally accept the argument if Thing was underrepresented, just if you're comparing it apples to apples to the 2005 movie. But I think that story's been covered enough times that like the Thing has trouble loving himself. So I didn't really, and that's what we'll get into it later. But there were a lot of alleged cuts made, and that was one of the big ones. Is that sub story? But yeah, I thought I don't know how much you want to get in depth at the moment, but yes, I thought the characterizations, especially of Johnny, Sue, and Reed, were about as good as you could possibly do.
I agree. I think that this movie is first and foremost, the main characters are really Reed and Sue.
100%.
And it really follows like their relationship and their preparation to start a real or an immediate family with a child. And I do agree with you. I think the thing was underutilized. Like you said, we can talk about that a bit more, but I also thought that the CGI all looked really good, but I think it was hard for Evan Moss Backrack to really kind of accentuate his acting. Like his acting, I think, just kind of took a hit from how he's represented through all the CGI. I think Michael Chiklis with the real prosthetics in the old movies was able to do a lot more emotion with it. But like you said, I really think that all the characters were represented well, and they really feel like they're ripped straight out of the
Yeah,
comics.
I do think they made a conscious decision that the Thing wasn't going to sound like a rock. he was just going to sound like Cousin from the Bear. And that took me about 90 seconds of shock to like, okay, this is just what he's going to sound like. That's going to be okay. And I just, also about the thing with his prosthetics in the 2005 movie. I liked this look better. I saw a lot of still images of the two side by side, the 2005 version, this current version. And when you see just a still photo, I totally understand thinking the previous iteration looks better. But throughout, I watched both of these movies in the last week. I think the version in this current film actually performs better throughout the movie, especially during the action sequences.
I agree. I think that he looks better. He looks like he's ripped straight out of a Jack Kirby drawing. I mean, he looks exactly how he did in the comic books. I think it was more so just the acting performance itself, I think, takes a hit. But like visually, yeah, I totally agree. What'd you think of Silver Surfer and Galactus?
Thought that I really liked the Silver Surfer stuff. If there was a we might be missing just a little bit of the emotional connection to the Silver Surfer. But as far as the look, I thought it was fantastic. I thought it looked incredible, way better than it looked in the trailers. And basic Silver Surfer backstory, which is the same backstory we've always gotten. And yeah, they looked cool. They were immensely powerful. You almost question at moments, like, why is this person the sidekick? Which is a Silver Surfer issue. Easily fly at light speed, evidently. But yeah, I really like the Silver Surfer, which I was skeptical about going into it. But that portrayal is so many light years ahead of the mute Silver Surfer we received in was 2007, 8. Mm-hmm. And that's a low bar to jump over, so I don't want to give them too much credit for that. But I did think it was very cool. And all the stuff with Johnny just gave it some depth that I wasn't expecting. I enjoyed.
Yeah, they finally gave Johnny that heart of gold you've been looking for. We can talk about that a bit more in spoilers. Before we hop into like specifics of the story, gotta give a shout out to my boy Michael Giacchino for the music. I feel like the score in this was incredible.
And it was such. I'm not taking a dig at Superman. Watched a couple videos ago. I loved Superman, but the James Gunn style of pop music needle drops versus this. I love them both, but I really liked this version. It felt so comic booky. Like the music you could conceive of in your head while reading a comic book is exactly what this sounded like.
I totally agree.
Like a Saturday morning cartoon.
Yeah, no, that's a perfect description of it. It truly does feel like it would be in, an old Fantastic Four cartoon, but it's really operatic and they really make it thematic. But yeah, I thought he did a great job. He did the Batman and Speed Racer. I know that's a personal favorite of yours. You really love that movie.
We have some disagreements about Speed Racer. that's for another time.
It's an incredible film. But all right, before we go off on a tangent about Speed Racer, which I will do, let's go ahead and hop into full spoiler territory. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, stop watching. Or, if you're one of those people that looks into spoilers, I don't trust you, but continue watching. It's your discretion. But we'll start with the first act. I thought the opening was genius. Just the idea that they were going to do a sizzle reel through the form of a talk show and show, I mean, they truly just took multiple comics from, the original run and just brought to live action with like the giant green monster they're fighting. And they had a lot of old villains like what's his name? The guy that has the super apes.
Red Ghost. Yeah.
Red Ghost. Yeah, that was supposed to be
John Malkovich.
Yeah, I guess they cut him from it, but all the inclusion of all those old villains and like seeing the Mole Man was incredible. We'll talk about him a bit more as he gets more important later in the movie, but what'd you think about that opening?
I really liked it. And one complaint I've seen, and this is, I take too much stock in 2 tweets I've seen, but I saw a lot of people praising the version of Reed that we got in this movie because he's smart. And they said that he wasn't able to portray his powers, his like stretching, as well as the 2005 version. I personally think that one clip on the scaffolding where he rebounded and shotgun kicked the monkey in the chest, I thought that was the coolest thing we've ever seen in a live action Fantastic Four movie. I loved that. I loved all the little asides to villains that you and I have both read some old Fantastic Four comics recently. Just little name drops like Red Ghost and Mole Man and Diablo and the Wizard. All of it was just smiling ear to ear.
You know who did not get any justice? Paste Pot Pete.
I was thinking,
It didn't include him.
not even once.
I know. How incredible would that have been if Paste Pot Pete just has a brief action scene shooting glue at somebody?
I think that would have made me and you happy and a lot of other people confused.
Oh yeah, I think the people I went with definitely aren't like huge Marvel fans, and they were a bit confused as is. I think if a guy that shot glue out of a gun showed up, it might have really bamboozled them even
I
further.
do
But
think that that little 10-minute vignette we got at the beginning, the 4 years of Fantastic Four, I think that really helped because, much like Superman, they really just threw you in to a world where these characters have existed for a long time. They have villains, they're heroes, and I thought that if that 10-minute vignette had not existed, it would have become a much more niche, like comic book nerd movie. But I think because of that, we got to learn these characters. We got to, you know, get the little quips from Sue Storm, like, "Oh, this is my brother. He's a lady. He's single." Stuff like that. I just you kind of got small pieces of all their personalities just from that little 6 to 10 minute vignette.
yeah, it was a perfect way to just totally skip the origin story. I don't think it's needed. I mean, even with most people these days might not know the Fantastic Four origin, but it's not important. You just need to know there's an accident. Now they have superpowers. Let's get on with the show. But
Even in the comics, their origins kind of like yada yada. Like,
definitely,
you know what I'm
yeah.
saying?
Which I mean, yeah, it's not really all that like I feel like some characters have really ingrained origins in their story that need to be told. Like Bruce Wayne losing his parents has to be told, but now they skip it because we've seen it like six
The
times. But
cosmic space storm is not Uncle Ben, and it's not Martha Wayne. It's totally just a. So this kind of happened. Don't worry about that. Now they're heroes. Now they're cool. So
definitely.
super easy to explain in 3 sentences.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it right after, it kind of goes into the pregnancy and Sue has a child on the way with Reed, and then like quickly after the Silver Surfer arrives and we really just get into the story. Like it really starts moving pretty fast after.
And I think that's where whatever cuts were made. Some people have said it's jarring. I don't have a keen eye for that kind of stuff. So I thought that getting there as quickly as we did was very smart, especially because we were going to spend so much time in science labs, which I loved all that stuff, but I could totally see someone being like, all right, come on. So we didn't need 30 minutes of Reed Richards looking into the cosmos for potential threats or anything.
I didn't pick up on that at all. I thought it really had a great pace to it. I didn't feel like it was cutting around a bunch. I will say, and we can maybe talk about this a little bit more in a bit, but the second act, I feel like there were some moments that kind of slowed down a little bit where I was like, all right, let's kind of get on with it. But yeah, I love the introduction of the Silver Surfer. I thought was really cool when she floats down and gives her heralding speech about how the world's gonna end. I Every time I hear her name, Shalabal, I feel like it sounds like an ASAP Ferg ad lib.
Shot
Yeah, like Shalabal.
You might want to mention that Shara Ranks is a real human being, not just an ASAP Ferg song.
Yeah, but we're talking about the Silver Surfer right now.
No, and I really thought that the dynamic that was introduced between Johnny and the Herald, as they called her for most of the movie, I thought that was a very smart way to play on Johnny's classic love of women without making him the Chris Evans. You heard how I felt about that, but yeah. Johnny likes space. Johnny likes women. I really liked that little line. It was very.
That was great. Encapsulates his personality pretty well in one
I'm just going to
sentence.
clear the floor for about 25 seconds to just talk about how much I love this Joseph Quinn version of Johnny. And also, I like Joseph Quinn in general. I thought his performance in Stranger Things was really cool. And instantly, he was such an innocent kid who did love flying rocket ships and is interested in ladies. But yeah, he was so sad that Reed wouldn't make him new spacesuits. Like that was his biggest concern. All he wanted to do was go back to space. And yeah, he was so excited to be an uncle. That's the kid that I've been dreaming of being on screen for a very long time. I really, really liked pretty much every moment he was in the movie.
Yeah, I really enjoyed his performance too. I think you're totally spot on with all of that. even this is later in the film, but he makes multiple sacrifice plays totally at his own expense, his own well-being, but he does it for his family, and I think that totally is spot on with his character and how he should be
Also,
written.
kind of like, and maybe I'm reading too much into it. Maybe it's just a silly, Marvel movie. But I think it kind of helps with his naivete that he keeps sacrificing himself, and it's never consequential. We see twice he literally offers his life, but we have no reason to believe he actually understands what that means.
No, I think you're right.
He might try to sacrifice his life 4 more times just because at this point he thinks he's invincible.
Yeah, that could definitely play into it. He just doesn't necessarily think through the ramifications of his
Because he's a
actions.
child just trying to do right by his family.
What did you think about the whole mission to go deal with Galactus? What were the highlights for you with all that?
So this is maybe small and not what you're looking for. I really liked that their light speed traveling machine was orbiting the Earth. That was very satisfying. That they had to connect to that. That was cool. I liked Herbie and all of his major responsibilities on the ship. I thought that that was the only moment in the movie where Reed had a very ill-conceived.
Yeah, yeah.
And in the movie, he's portrayed as a fallible genius. This is kind of an example of that. But he's done all the research. He sees all the planets that Galactus and Silver Surfer have been to have been devoured, and he was like, "Let's just go pay him a visit," which maybe is the first thing a reasonably intelligent person would think to do.
Yeah, I definitely agree that, and I think the movie does a good job of portraying him as an incredibly smart person that still fucks up big time, which is what he does in the comics. Like in 2005, he's just wrong the entire movie. But this one, it's like he has really smart plans, and he's obviously an intelligent person, but he does have these lapses in judgment, and he does make mistakes, and it does endanger his family. But I love that whole sequence with Galactus, the whole plot device that he will spare the planet for their unborn son, I thought was incredible. I think there's a comic run where he's like after Franklin like that, but I thought they adapted it perfectly. It's just the ultimate high stakes for the main characters, and the rest of the planet is just kind of reacting to it. And I do love how the first part of the movie is just them praising the Fantastic Four and thanking them for being their heroes all the time. And as soon as the Fantastic Four want to be selfish about something, they're like, "You guys suck. Like, you guys need to get over yourselves and give up your child."
Couldn't have said it better. They absolutely, and putting yourself in an average person's shoes, I get it. I'm not sure Sue's, while in the movie it worked wonders, and I do think it was the emotional crux of the movie. I don't think Sue's speech at the foot of the Baxter Building would have won me over if I watched it on MSNBC the following day.
I think that is definitely a speech that takes place in a more optimistic version of our world, where I really enjoyed the speech, and as a device in the movie, I was moved, but I agree. At the same time, I was thinking people would immediately start booing in real life and say, "Just give him your son."
Also, just to touch back, I had forgotten I wanted to mention this. You talked about comic runs where Franklin and Galactus interact frequently. I don't know how much you want to get into Franklin lore, because I don't know how much Marvel comic writers even dare to step into his lore anymore because it's so convoluted. But yeah, there were runs where he was so powerful that he ended up making Galactus's hair, like taking over the curse. So yeah, he's pretty much done it all in the same way that Jimmy Olsen has in the DC universe. It's like, yeah, anything Franklin is right because he's done everything.
We'll touch on him a bit more towards the end because it has to do with the post credit scene, and I want to get into like what the end of this movie kind of how it sets the pathway for the next few Marvel movies, and I think he's going to be a huge piece of it. But going back to the mission out in space, the getaway I thought was riveting. I was on the edge of my seat when they were trying to leave and the surfer was at like surfing on lava. That was really cool. And then the whole battle with her through the warp speed tunnel and how the gravity was shifting all the effects of like the gun they're using against her and everything, I thought was an incredible set piece.
Fake science question.
Yeah.
So when she had made it through the ship, she obviously has the ability to warp matter, travel through walls, etc. Why, when they achieved 0.88 light speed and were able to slingshot around the star, why did she fly out of the back of the ship? Because if you remember, she was about to touch Sue's stomach. Why, why didn't she just turn back to solid matter and hit the back?
Honestly, probably like I'm sure
Like the
there's
plot device of it all.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like the answer that probably just makes the most sense is she was focused on getting the baby, and the change in speed and direction maybe just threw her off enough to where she was still like phasing through her stomach. So the change in trajectory, like she flew backwards and was still in like phasing mode and just flew right out of the ship, I
It
guess.
just felt like I was, for a half second, I was a little confused why she had been left behind.
Yeah, no, that's a fair question. Yeah, I don't know. Some of those characters, like the all like Silver Surfer, is just so powerful. Like sometimes it's just you have to have some writing contrivances
Yeah,
just to justify
it's
stuff.
hard to dip into power scaling or power explaining. Just come on, just watch watch what they're doing right now.
You don't want to argue about Superman versus the Incredible Hulk? That was our next
No
segment.
interest.
Shit. All right, we'll have to pivot. I loved the whole giving birth scene in the rocket ship, and then I loved when Sue repeats every worry that Reed had to her earlier in the film. Like as soon as like, she has her son in the world and things are looking dire, she immediately is like everything's gonna change. Like, and he's the one that then has to be
The comfort.
the comforter, like what she did for him earlier in the movie. I thought that really showcased the relationship and their dynamic and just the whole that whole sequence of them escaping, Silver Surfer getting sucked into the black hole, I just thought was really well done.
Do you think Sue and Reed they had moments where they were clearly in love with one another? And I don't question, especially the chemistry between Pedro Pascal and Jessica Kirby was palpable. And the only thing I'd say in contrast to that is there were a lot of moments where Sue was really tearing down Reed as like it's so hard to be with you, you're so neurotic, you always think of the worst things. And then he would say, I know, I suck, and then it was the end of the conversation. So I think really felt bad for Reed at points where, and even him talking to Franklin where he was like, I hope you don't end up like me. There was no like rebound in Reed's favor later on, where it was like, actually, man, we need you to be like this. We do need you to be the warrior all the time. Because Sue ended up really saving the day when Reed's plan kind of went to shit. So
I honestly I don't totally agree with you on that. I really loved when she kind of goes off on him because at least what my thought or kind of idea of Reed's character has always been is that he is this deeply intelligent person, but he's also deeply flawed, and it does really cause a lot of strife on his family and the people around him, and he's in the comics he's like always doing shit that just really puts people in bad situations. So I kind of like that he recognized that about himself and had that conversation with his son. I think he I will agree you're right, like they maybe could have done a better job about giving him a little bit of a redemption moment because he is just kind of yeah, like he's so logical to a fault where he's like, well, it would make sense to give up our child. Not saying that I will, but it makes a lot of sense and obviously that's not
I
ideal.
think what, as an audience, what we are expected to believe, and I'm willing to believe, is that there have been 4 pretty good years of the Fantastic Four where Sue and Reed probably got on pretty well. This is actually just a high stress situation where things are going to be said and flaws are going to be highlighted.
It does seem like they're batting 1,000 because as soon as they get back from the space journey, all the reporters are like, "How'd you win?" They're like, "Well, funny thing about that, we did not."
I really liked that a lot. And I thought that whole press conference moment, especially with the other 3 members of the Fantastic Four, really trying to, it seemed like usher Reed away from the podium. And he had to be honest with the public. Like, yeah, man, we messed up, and also we could fix it, but we're not going to.
Yeah, that was very honest about his child. I feel like that's probably why Sue is depicted as the face with like the world leaders and everything. Maybe next time if she didn't just have a baby, maybe she would have been the one delivering the news and not Reed. He was a little too forward with the information on that one. But I kind of like that too because it's yeah, he's on like kind of honest to a fault.
There was a moment going into the movie where, especially at the stinger at the end of Thunderbolts, we saw the Fantastic Four entering their dimension. It's clearly stated that they are entering from another dimension. So you can kind of logically assume that it's this version of the Fantastic Four that we've just been introduced to. And so their world could be demolished and that they could lose this battle, which obviously adds intrigue to the movie. And I think that the moment Sue Storm gave that speech, to harken back to that, at the foot of the Baxter building, about how she would not sacrifice her world for her child, it was that moment where I was like, this, they cannot lose. If they lose now, they are just like the biggest jerks in the universe. Because not only did they lose, they then just jumped to a different timeline. So I really thought in that moment, it raised the stakes for me a lot. Because in the back of my mind, the whole time, I'm thinking they can just leave. And maybe that is what happens. But in that moment, I was like, oh, if they have to win. It's a must-win situation now. Because they've gotten the whole world, presumably, or just 2,000 people, to believe that they are fighting.
I remember when Thunderbolts, the post-credit scene, came out with the movie, and all these people online were mad about, well, now we know how the Fantastic Four ends, like their world's gonna get eaten, and people were genuinely thinking that like the movie was spoiled, and
Yeah.
believe it or not, Marvel knew what they were doing, even though sometimes they don't, but usually they do. But yeah, I totally agree. I honestly, going in, was thinking, is this gonna be like a really dark conclusion where they're like, Galactus is on his way, he's here, and we're losing. We'll be right back. We promise we're not abandoning you, but like we're gonna go jump ship for a
I was
minute.
honestly thinking, yeah, it could be a Rogue One situation. Yeah, we just lose at the end.
Yeah. Speaking of the ending and Galactus finally arriving, what did you think of the whole plan of, moving the egg, like teleporting the Earth to another place in space? I thought that was a really wacky but awesome
I
solution
thought it was a
presented.
good solution, but it heavily relied on something that Reed and Co. were not counting on, which was Silver Surfer not just like following them. Because she is clearly capable of any sort of intergalactic travel and could just lead Galactus. Thank God Johnny was Rosetta Stoning it up in his little office for the whole time. Or else that plan, it would have saved him for months. But they would have, it was because Silver Surfer chose the planets we were led to believe for specific reasons. I don't know if they had to have sentient life or if she was just bitter. But I thought it was a good way to buy some time, but I was not really on board with the idea that it saved him for good.
Yeah, no, I definitely was on the same page with you there. Obviously, something was going to go awry because, from the marketing, we see that Galactus arrives and be, kind of a boring ass conclusion if they just go, all right, turn on the machines. All right, we're good. End credits. But I did like the idea that just the idea in general that the whole world had to come together for this solution. Again, it's kind of like a optimistic take on reality where like everyone really would come together, conserve power for this like super noble common goal to preserve the human
It was made.
race. But yeah, I it was weird because they I don't know if she just was able to get there faster than they thought because Reed said, the black hole will keep her away for a month. I don't know if she just managed to expedite her timetable and they didn't know. But yeah, I did think when she just showed up, I thought maybe it didn't work the way they thought it would and they all blew up. But then when it was her destroying them all, I'm like, oh, well, I guess they just didn't account for the right time period, I suppose.
Which would make sense. It's not like they have a lot of science on how fast Silver Surfers can move.
True,
I'm
yeah.
underestimating her a little bit.
Yeah, the sexy alien information is thin out there, apparently. Not much known.
Her and the girl from Star Wars who's green. I'm sure you know her name.
Who's the girl? Which
Yeah.
the slave in Java's palace?
No. Yes.
I'm sure you know her name. I do not know her name.
Yeah.
Come on now.
I do think just for a moment I will, you know, I will say that the one thing that the Fantastic Four in 2005 did better than this was paint the Thing as a sympathetic, monster of a man who was having a hard time transitioning into being Rocks. And the only moment I felt that it really was awkward in what unfolded on screen was when he went to the synagogue to hang out with Natasha Lyonne. It's like, we really only saw you talk once. Like, there's got to be some missing information here. Because otherwise, she should be weirded out.
Yeah, I hated that whole side plot because it just didn't really go anywhere. And like you said, it seems like maybe that's where they edited stuff out because when he went back to see her a second time, I was sitting there and that's when I was kind of like, all right, this feels like it's slowing down a little bit, this part of the movie, because I just did not give a fuck about whatever their relationship was. Like, I didn't care at all. And it just, I don't know, it just seemed like kind of this random plugged in thing to try and give him some sort of like emotional backstory besides just being on the team and having his, rock accident. But just didn't do much for me.
No, and if anyone didn't have their hero moment, other than in combat, which I'll talk about in a second, but if anyone didn't have their hero moment, Sue literally saved the day. In addition to giving birth at light speed, Reed figured out the whole teleportation plan, which eventually is what got Galactus away from Earth. And Johnny solved a language in what I believe was 72 hours, which is pretty impressive. Ben didn't have anything like that throughout the movie, but he was, and I guess pun intended at this point, but he was the rock of the group, and he never wavered.
Well done.
He was supportive of everyone in the group, and then he did, of course, get to yell, "It's clobbering time," while Plunk
needed it,
which really, really made me happy.
I mean, the trailers led you to believe he, surely was gonna yell it out, and it was incredible. Just straight into a cannonball, right to the chest of the main villain. Just good stuff.
It impeded his progress a tiny bit.
Yeah, that was the one issue I had, was the clobbering time didn't amount to much clobbering. It was more of like a slight inconvenience time, but pretty cool nonetheless. But I think easily the highlight of the third act is Sue Storm just going X Games mode and saving the day. I think that's maybe top 5 coolest scenes in the MCU. Maybe that's generous, but I had the biggest smile on my face. I am such a sucker for main character finds untapped power and potential to save a loved one. It's so cheesy, but it works every time. Every time I see it, I'm like, that's right. Power of love.
I do want to point out that they're all kind of dumb. And then, again, they don't know how Galactus's eyes work. But the second I saw that he identified where the baby was, in the center of the city, like, why do they think they can move the baby and he's not going to figure it out?
The old bait and switch. Yeah, I thought that was a pretty thin plan. Not even a fake baby in the case, it's just an empty carrot.
Maybe they put some of his DNA in there. Like, I don't know, something.
Literally made the baby glow through Sue's stomach when they are in space. Clearly can just hone in on the baby's energy. It's just like, no, he'll fall for the old shell game. It works every time.
And speaking of the baby, do you have any thoughts of what it looked like when the Thing had to carry the baby?
Dude, I hate CGI babies.
We don't have.
They just.
We haven't figured it out.
No, they have not figured it out. Like, I remember, I never saw the later Twilight movies, but I remember a ton of hubbub about like the awful CGI vampire baby. And then I saw it on like YouTube later and was like, yeah, I mean, pretty terrible. Seemingly have not come very far since then. Like, when the baby's reaching out to Sue towards the end, when she's, presumed dead on the ground, I was sitting there like, that's rough.
Sucks the life out of the moment just a tiny bit. Also, I'm pretty sure you weren't at the theater with me seeing Breaking Dawn 2.
I don't think so. I saw the first one in the theater, but I don't think I saw the rest. Maybe that's a locked memory. I don't know. I was wearing my Twilight merch. I'm actually a huge fan.
I could have sworn you were there, but 10 years ago. 14 years ago.
I think now that you say that, I do remember leaning over and whispering to you when Robert Pattinson was on screen, like, that's going to be the best Batman ever someday. And you looked at me and were like, no shot. And I said, you just watch.
Another Carter column.
Dude, we got to talk about Paul Walter Hauser as the Mole Man. What'd you think?
Oh, I love Paul Walter Hauser. Emmy Award winner, if I'm not mistaken. But I know him best from his famous "I Think You Should Leap" sketch, where someone keeps stealing his lines in a play. But I really liked his small cameo at the beginning. I thought it was smart and logical that they had to get everyone to Subterranea. I did think it kind of halted the suspense of the movie for just a little too long when he came in like firing off jokes. Like, I was like, and maybe he didn't understand the severity of the situation.
I think, yeah, he maybe is just a dumbass because I think they do tell him, like, hey man, you're underground. He's gonna eat the whole planet. Like, he's not just gonna eat us. And he just continues to needle everyone. And then Sue's like, come on, man. Like, let's get serious. And he's like, I'm sorry,
They
Sue.
reveal pretty quickly. You're just like, I'm just having some fun. But I
Yeah.
even thought that was kind of paper thin. But he was very funny, and that was one of many Easter eggy or fan servicey things that I like. I also liked the many mentions of, or at least visual references to Victor Von Doon's kingdom of Latveria, and he was conspicuous by his absence constantly at world summits and whatever. And it was a lot of stuff that you didn't need. You didn't need to know who Mole Man was. It's pretty much talked out. You didn't need to know. Latveria was irrelevant. It was not even mentioned, I don't think, vocally in the movie. But that's just the kind of stuff I'm here for.
Yeah, it's just kind of like blink and you'll miss if you're not familiar with the characters. It would never even probably raise an eyebrow when it pans over to the empty Latveria seat at the the
Oh,
world
how big is
meeting
India?
of what'd you
How
say?
large is Subterranea? That all of New York could fit in there.
I think it's the entire underground.
Do they have like apartment buildings the whole way? Or is there a lot of untouched?
I think it's mostly like mole creatures and then just the mole man. I don't know if they live in luxury in the dirt underground at Subterranea. Yeah, but I don't know. I thought the conclusion was great. Silver Surfer coming in at the very end to save Johnny. I mean, I don't know if I felt like we got enough where that really paid off, where I thought what a great redemption moment, but it was one of those things where like I know enough and you know enough about the comics that the Silver Surfer always like
That's
comes
what I
around
was
at the end. So I
saying.
figured she'd come in and save the
They,
day.
do you think they just didn't feel like they had to, or do you think there was a missing moment of the Silver Surfer debating how to best handle the situation?
I don't know. I think they probably figured that the like flashback scene with her on her homeworld with her own child would be enough, but even that scene, I wasn't a huge fan. I thought it looked kind of weird and it just didn't really I don't know. It did not achieve what I think they were hoping it would, where we would see her come in the end and help save the day and think that checks out totally based off what we saw of her past. It just I think I kind of personally filled in the blanks with just a lot of my knowledge of the
Yeah.
comics. All right, well, do you have any more thoughts about the movie before we get into your favorite time of the video?
Yeah, we're going long. Let's go ahead and get to the facts.
All right, Luke, we got four more fantastic facts for you this
All right.
week. Are you
I
ready?
hope so.
All right, first one. Did you know the actor that plays Galactus, Ralph Ineson, is actually a normal sized man? And they use computer generated images to make him look like a massive space being.
I assume so, but I appreciate you
Hmm.
letting me know. Also, just real quick, uh, my wife, who has no knowledge of superheroes, she has no backstory. She was really perturbed that Galactus, a being that existed before time, looked like a dude with a helmet, which is not something I ever considered. But I thought it was a very funny observation.
How mad would you have been if she was said something like, I just feel like it would have worked better if he was giant like space
So I
cloud.
had to explain that they tried it. And like it didn't work. They tried it. This is better.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. This all-powerful being that's older than time and space itself is just a big purple man. Is pretty funny. But all right, why were you so angry that they gender swapped the Silver Surfer?
I wasn't. Um, yeah, no.
Oh, okay. Me neither. I was wondering why you were, but I guess I was mistaken. Anyway, all right. Third fun fact, I suppose, since you don't want to delve into that
No,
one.
I have no interest.
All right, third fun fact. Did you know that I'm wearing a Mighty Morphin Power Rangers t-shirt?
I
And do you like it?
do. I
Pretty good, right? Thank
see
you. I just wanted to fish for that
the late
compliment.
2010s Power Rangers, maybe.
That's a good one. Did you see
Oh
that?
yeah,
I don't know if it's a good one. It's all right.
fine.
All right. This is the best one of the four. I'm really excited to hear your thoughts on this fun fact. Did you know that the Human Torch can regulate the heat of his fire when he's flaming on?
I knew you could make it hotter, so I guess that would stand to reason.
You know who can't control how hot they are?
Give it to me.
Chris Evans. because he's so physically
A very good
attractive.
looking man. It all comes back to the materialist.
Pedro Pascal. The materialist has it's got its branches and everything, man. It's
We're gonna have to do
unavoidable.
that movie, unfortunately.
I'm not scared. Coke and beer, nothing
Nothing
better.
better.
All right, last thing before we wrap up the video, I want to briefly talk about that post-credit scene with Doctor Doom. What'd you think about it?
So, and I don't know anything, so I don't want to pretend to, but it felt like this movie could have easily been made, and I think most of it was made, while Kang was still the planned antagonist of this phase of the MCU. It didn't really have much to do. There's no reason to believe that this movie was a result of the pivot that they made away from the Kang situation. So I think I'm happy that that's all we got of the Doctor Doom. It was they clearly had to acknowledge it, and I'm glad it was just this. But yeah,
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 I agree. I think one thing that kind of bothered me was the whole plot is about obviously like saving the Earth, but they also want to save Franklin, their son. And I know it's like a 4 years later jump for the post-credit scene, but then it's just Franklin in danger again by like their mortal
yeah.
enemy. And I feel like that kind of undermined the movie a little bit. I mean, I don't think that was like a huge
They
deal,
had
but
to do
I
I understand that they had to do something, but
definitely. And I think, I mean, that is seemingly how Secret Wars and Avengers Doomsday is going to start, is Franklin in the comics is like this reality warping and universe creating entity. So I assume Doctor Doom's going to manipulate him
yeah.
and get that going. And that's probably why the Fantastic Four is in a shuttle headed to the mainline, like, universe of the MCU to find help.
Makes sense. But again, it felt very tacked on, but that's fine. That doesn't upset me.
I didn't get a good look at his shoes. I couldn't tell if he was wearing the lifts or not, but I guess we'll have to wait for the full costume reveal
Yeah.
to get closure on that one. All right, well, I think that about does it. I don't know what we'll do next week's video on. We'll discuss. It'll be a surprise for everyone. I've considered maybe Jaws for the 50th anniversary, but totally up for discussion.
Sounds good.
All right, well, thanks for joining. That's the video for this week. Luke, as always, thank you for being
Thank you for
here.
having me.
Absolutely. If you all enjoyed this video, like, comment, subscribe, tell all your friends about us. We're going to the moon.